so for the protocol, we're going to turn this on, the on switch in the back, right? We can hear the motor start to run. And you may need to come in to get closer shots or whatever you have to do, but from here, we're going to turn the computer on. Now while the computer is warming up, I can go ahead and start presetting some of this stuff. I'm going to put this on the setup mode. Okay, so we're in setup, and then I'm going to establish the range of motion. Okay, so to establish the range of motion, I'm going to hit standby, on, and then start. I'll go in direction number 1 first. I'm going to throttle that back to 80% so that I do not forget to do that later. You can do it at any time. I just prefer to do it right away so I don't forget. And now I'm going to go all the way to the top until it stops. Press 1. And then I'm going to go all the way to the top of the other end. And press 2. I'm going to go ahead and turn that back to about 80% as well, just so that we know that we're going to be starting with a really limited range of motion. And then I'm going to try to get an idea, based on my height first, about how I'm going to want to adjust the regular system here. But the idea is I'm going to turn this handle, and I'm going to adjust this to the height that I want it.
Change it for you now, but today.
Right there. Make sure that's nice and tight.
So rather than doing a lean forward one like we're going to,
This is going to be pretty standard right here. The angle. If we wanted to make it more shallow, we would have this tilted so that it would be a little bit closer to this part of the machine. To do that, we loosen this. And so this would be for somebody that has a more upright swing. And then I have to take my stopper out of here. To have a flatter swing, we would be down here closer to this. The only problem with having it down here right now is if somebody really jerks from the top, they can loosen this mechanism and the bar would potentially hit right here. I need to have a hard stop in there to prevent that from happening. But this has to be very, very tight to prevent that from happening. For right now, we're going to be working with a little bit more of an upright swing. So we're going to be about right there. Again, this is very tight. Very tight. And this is wedged in. In fact, let me wedge that in there first. Actually, when it's at an angle like this, that allows you to have a flatter swing. When you can see this is at the angle, if you can come around and get that. So if I was to wedge in at that position, then that would be a flat swing. Again, we're going for a little bit more upright, so I'm going to wedge in. Reverse this thing. I need to have a more permanent solution for this, but it's just a backup in case this lever is not secure enough. So again, lots of force for that. And then we're basically ready to go minus the final adjustments. And so we're going to, let's go ahead and get you set up here. And if you can walk around this way, Helen, I'll show you what I'm looking for. I'm trying to get a scenario where this angle is going through the sternum. So it looks like we're pretty good. This might be that's just pretty darn good right there. You're not going to get much better than that. Now you can see right now for for him to be grabbing onto that handle, it's very upright. We're going to want to be a little bit flatter, and part of that is dictated because this is probably too long right now. So I'm going to actually make an adjustment here where this goes up a little bit, and then I'll actually, yeah, and then from there you could actually step back even just a little bit if you wanted to, because as you hinge forward there, you're going to have your club is going to be, you know, actually more like this, you know, more at that angle. But does that feel pretty good to start with?
Yeah, that's good.
So now we're going to go onto the passive mode. Now remember, real important not to keep a person in golf posture too long, just because that's going to be aggravating to back. So as we're making adjustments, you can let go of that, wiggle around a little bit. Now that the computer is ready for this, we're going to hit F1 to continue. This could be done at any time, and then this is going to take us into the screen that we want. The computer only reads what the information from this, so you could adjust these independently of each other. But we're going to go ahead and skip past the patient. So I'm going to go right over to operation. I just right arrow to operation, and then I'm going to enter there, enter there, enter there, enter there, enter there, and this is the screen that I want, which should be preset. And then I'm just going to down arrow all the way to run rehab, and this will be ready to go once I turn this to the proper setting. And in this case, we're going to be going to the passive mode. Okay, so this is where you're going to hold on to that thing. I'm going to go to passive mode. This is set up right now to, it'll be 30 degrees per second. I have torque limiter set all the way up on that, and then I am going to hit start. And this is the one that I'm going to have you kind of resist into your backswing position like that. And you can see where this is just, you know, a very limited swing. And I'm going to make that a little bigger by turning this knob here. And remember, this is where you kind of push your hands out away from you. Good looking grip there. A little bend in the knees. Already your grip looks better than the other day. And then this is where you resist it on the way back. That's where we get our eccentric contraction. You're going to stretch there. And then to give a little extra credit, stretch. This is where you can actually bend your knees a little bit on that. And as you're just kind of warming up with that, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here so that we can get into our graph. Hit enter again, and then we'll actually start printing some real-time graphs. So resisting on the way back, holding and stretching on the way back. I'm going to have you stretch for a full 10 seconds on that. I just turned that from 5 seconds to 10 seconds, and this is our warm-up. Now after you've had a chance to warm up, we actually start helping the machine on the way down. And so on the way back, we'll be helping it a little bit, helping it to impact position, and then resisting it, and then stretching. And then the idea is when we're helping the machine, that's when we actually start looking at the torque curve and trying to get that to maximize at ball position. So you're helping, and generating force, and there you go. You peaked right at ball position, so that was a very good contraction there. And that's something that we could stop the machine and call attention to, you know, if we wanted to. And even on the way back here, just for symmetry purposes, you could help the machine on the way back. It's a little more awkward because of your grip on that one. There we go. Perfect. And so, of course, we would do a couple sets of 10 of these, 2 to 3 sets. But for right now, this is good. I'm going to have you just kind of relax. I'm going to turn the machine off at the bottom, right there. Have you stand up, kind of shake your hands a little bit. Now, anytime we want, we could start that machine back up and do another set of these. But just for demonstration purposes now, we're going to go ahead and go to the fast speed protocol. And this is the one that we're doing a little bit different now. we're going to, instead of going to isokinetic, we're going to go all the way over to isotonic mode, okay? And we're going to set the torque limiter all the way down to 10, which means you're going to have to remember to reset this when we go back to the passive mode on the next climb. And then we're going to actually, because see, if we do this, and then hit, because right now it's locked up, if we hit start, then there's just a lot of force right there. So is what we're going to do is set the torque limiter all the way down to 10, and then we're going to put the decrease the scale by tenfold, and then it frees it up. So is what we're going for is we're trying to get an isokinetic contraction without having that speed limiter that sometimes kicks in on the really good golfers that generate a lot of speed. So from there you go. You're just going to be wig-wagging that thing from side to side. Now, one thing that I'm noticing here, I think we may have that handle a little too close to you, especially as we start getting a little faster on our speeds. People tend to get trapped a little bit, so I'm going to elongate this just a little bit. Tighten it back up, make sure it's nice and tight. Make sure you're out of the way. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll work into a full swing. But yeah, just going nice and easy at first. And this is the one that you're trying to keep as much kerchunk out of the handle as you can during the transition. And if you're doing that, then you know that you're swinging it with a smooth transition. So that's the right-handed swing. And we're going to free this up a little bit now by, I'm going to go 100% so that you could take this back as far as you want to. You're kind of being too limited right now. And now that we're on passive mode, even if a person doesn't have full range of motion, they're going to stop when their body tells them to stop. The time that it's important to be limited in range of motion is when you start the passive mode, because you really don't want to take somebody beyond the position they're comfortable with. But a good verbal cue is, if this starts moving you into discomfort, please, stand up. Don't let it stretch you to the point that it hurts. We never want to work in the pain. Okay? So let's go ahead and try that now with the expanded mode. I should have done this before. I had forgot that I had you on such a limited range, and I was wondering why you weren't going far enough. It was my fault, not yours. Things that we're looking at as he's doing this, we're making sure that his right knee does not extend on that backswing, and he's doing a good job of keeping the right knee bent there. You kind of want the right elbow to fold a little bit more. Other than that, people sometimes on the follow-through will start getting a little bit trapped, and that's because they're moving past the ball. They need to stay behind the ball. And then sometimes that's just an indicator that the machine is not set up correctly for them, and we would need to make an adjustment, usually by elongating the length of the handle. It's a pretty good workout there. And then from there, this is when we would go ahead and have to stop that, change hand positions, and go in and do a left-handed swing, which is going to be much more accurate. So one of the things that we would work on in your case, especially in the passive mode, would be to make sure that as you get into that backswing position, the fists are still, away from your sternum, even if you felt like you were pushing them away, so that you didn't collapse and lose your arc. And that's something that can be worked on most effectively in the slower passive eccentric mode, but something that will start adding to the fast speed swing as well. So that's the setup. There is a shutdown procedure on this. I don't know if you know about this shutdown procedure, but let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to come over here. It doesn't matter when I shut off the main one, so since we're here, we'll just shut this off by escaping out of there. Okay. I'm just going to escape out of that and escape again. Don't need to save the protocol. Okay, now from here, we need to back arrow from that, or excuse me, you need to enter there, and then, well, I'm gonna escape from there. Excuse me, I escaped from that mode, and then I need to front arrow over to utilities because I need to get into the utilities menu. I'm going to down arrow to exit Biodex, and then it's going to start going through its process. As it's doing that, I could walk over here and turn the machine off. And this would be in the case that you're kind of wrapping things up for the evening. So it's taking a while. So now we're going to go over here to start. Now we don't have a mouse, so we're just going to hit the little Microsoft icon here, and then we're going to arrow down to shut down. And then from there you just hit OK, so I'm going to enter again. It's going to tell me that it's safe to shut off the computer, and then I do that. But before we wrap up the video, one other thing, when you do have a person trying to generate as much torque as we can, and maybe even looking at the torque peaks, it really helps to show them that the force is being delivered right here. People tend to get, they don't roll the club through impact. They're holding the club open through impact. And that's something that you'll notice right away when somebody's doing that. They just never release the club. And of course that promotes a blocked right shot. So getting them to roll through that, sometimes it's helpful for them to look at this device and to tell them, you know, you need to be pushing this ball and socket through impact, not necessarily pulling it. So by the time you get to impact, it should feel more like a pushing motion and less like a pulling motion. And so we talked about that's something that shows up a lot. People tending to straighten the right knee shows up. People you know, getting collapsed at each end of the range. You really have to coach them to be elongated at each end of that range, especially when you first start them up. Having them resist the machine is helpful. Okay.